session. Call our meeting to order. I think that's all I have to do since we resumed it from there. Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Gentlemen, we're now at the stage on agenda approval, and I need to add under the county manager's report, item G, which will deal with Jeff Neal of the Sheriff's Office retiring, and our policy on that weapon being sold to said officers for $1, which has always been our policy in most departments there. That is G under 10, 10G.
Okay.
H under 10 will be a discussion, I'm not sure exactly how to phrase this, of political signs on county property or right-of-way to make sure that we're good, because we've had lots of issues. Make sure that we're not picking on one side or the other, and fairness, so that will be 10H. Those are my two. What else do I have, gentlemen?
Chair, I move that we approve the amended agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? All against the agenda approval?
Pardon me?
Are you in
I'm
favor
sorry.
of it, or?
I'm sorry, no, my mistake. I was
Okay.
reading something, sorry.
Okay.
No, that's
I'm
fine.
in favor, we're good.
Okay, so we show 5-0 on the agenda approval. It has been amended. We now are looking at the minutes. Approval of the minutes, September the 4th, 2020 special, and September the 22nd regular minutes. They're both sets are in your notebooks, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, I move that the minutes be approved as submitted.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Okay. Public comment. No one has signed up, so we're going straight into number 4. It's a public hearing on our community development block grant. Ms. Terry Bellamy will come and have a conversation with us. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Chairman Goforth and members of the Commission. It's a pleasure to be here before you this evening. Tonight I'm here to talk about the Community Development Block Grant Coronavirus Program. So the history of the program is, last month, the state of North Carolina was awarded $28.5 million in order to support local initiatives that will curtail the spread of coronavirus. And the money came from the Department of HUD. A couple of provisions of the grant. Each community can apply for up to $900,000. And technically, for Madison County, each of the townships technically could apply for it themselves. However, tonight I'm asking for consideration that we do one grant as a county-wide effort in Madison County for up to $900,000. 10% of the grant can be used for administration, so that would be up to $90,000 to assist with this grant implementation. The person has to be an experienced person who has experience with CDBG funds. The program dollars can be used for economic development, health, wellness, programs that support coronavirus deterrence. The timeline, you all have heard over the last few months that the timeline is December 31st, 2020 for the expenditure of coronavirus CARES Act funds. However, this program allows us up to 30 months for implementation. When we think about why we should do one grant, it will be helpful with administration. And if you look at the dollars, we have to serve low, very low, up to 80% of the income individuals. And in Madison County, that maximum number for a family of 4 will be $57,300. And in Madison County, for a family of 4, that's $55,916 is the average family wages. So that would include most of Madison County for consideration. So tonight, I'm asking you to host the first of 2 public hearings that's required for this program. Because it's community development block grant funds from HUD, it requires a public hearing to be held prior to the development of a grant and after a grant is actually drafted. Our goal tonight is to gather input from low to moderate income individuals about the grant process to give their input, and also to acknowledge that we have a citizen participation committee. At your last meeting, you approved the creation of this committee. And so we do have members of our community who have said they would serve on that committee. Yes, Commissioner Ledford.
Okay, interrupt briefly. I've got a couple people sent messages saying when you turn towards the screen, they can't hear you on the live feed. So just letting you know.
I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
I can't touch that button. This presentation is complete for the most part. I think a key component to highlight for this process, the community block grant is a pretty comprehensive grant to complete. The Dogwood Trust Foundation is providing a grant writer who's going to attend meetings, write the grant, and make sure we assess a good program prior to submission for this community. And so that's free of charge, no cost to the residents of Madison County for us to implement this program. So tonight, I'm asking you to do the first component, to open the public hearing so we can receive comments from the citizens of Madison County about the priorities for this program.
But if we have questions, when do we ask?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we open the public hearing.
The motion to open a public hearing, do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
What discussion? Discussion?
Discussion, okay.
Discussion, yes. If we apply for this as a county, and you said that the towns can apply for 900,000, and we're gonna apply for 900,000, can they still apply?
Absolutely. And the Economic Development Advisory Board did have this conversation, and one of the town's administrators recommended that we consider applying as a county as opposed to individual townships. However, tonight's action is on behalf of Madison County.
Just the county?
And if any township says, you know what, we choose to apply ourselves, this will not prohibit their ability to do so.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? That's a great question. All in favor? Okay, so the hearing is now open. Are there individuals who would like to speak to the said HUD block grant? Don't all jump up at once.
Okay.
All right, I see none, so we will close the, any just,
Do you want me to speak about the school?
Now's the appropriate time.
okay, okay.
Even though,
How are you?
Thank you for allowing me to do this. I spoke very briefly with Terry prior to the opening of the meeting. But on behalf of the Marcel Anderson Rosenwald School and the Mount Olive communities, we would like to be considered in some form or fashion in this application. We had been included in an application, or we thought we were going to, some years past. And when the whole process was finished, our whole section was just left out completely. And I know that in the prior one, that the community had been surveyed, the homes had been visited, and we had some plans for what we needed to do. And since the Rosenwald School is on the National Registry now, and it is a national treasure, we would love to have that community considered as part as the economic, or to address an economic development issue for consideration for the block grant. Thank you.
Anyone else here would like to speak to the block grant? Okay.
Terry, do we, there, at least somewhere else in the process, there's another opportunity for public discussion, correct?
It is.
Okay. So anybody who wasn't able to come tonight, they're still gonna get a crack at us?
They can do that. They can also email me, and my information is on the county's website.
Okay.
What's the timeline for this?
So we haven't set one. The Citizen Participation Committee hasn't met, and as soon as we do, it started getting information from individuals. We know that we will not be able to be here for your November meeting, and we need to know how the December meeting, because I know it's an organizational meeting, if you will actually conduct business that day. The thing is, this money is first come, first served. And so there are other communities. It is, the quicker we can get input from the community of what's a priority, the quicker we can respond and start the application process. We've already had a meeting with the grant writers, so they're already drafting the credentials and the things that we have to have regardless of whatever we submit or design. So that process has started. So now we just need to know, what are your priorities? What do you want us to focus these resources on? Yes.
Terry, do you think you would be ready for the 4th Tuesday of November for our work session?
If that's the date that we have, we will work really hard. We just need to know when we have to submit the information to the clerk in order for it to be considered.
Mr. Chairman, Terry has worked very diligently on this project, starting at least 4 weeks ago. If you'll remember, you had to have a citizen participation plan that got adopted last month. We had to get some preliminaries in place, and like she said, this is a first come, first served. I think the money is there, okay? But your projects have to be related somehow to COVID. You have to have 2 meetings. This is the first one.
Right.
Your next one will be in conjunction with an application and a plan that you have to have.
Yes.
Now, you know, I'm going to share with you, just not to say it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, just to show. Last night, County Commissioners in Yancey had their second hearing, and we actually approved the plan. We could have gotten $900,000. We wanted to get a plan in, and we put one together maybe a little bit too fast, but we got an actual plan of $450,000 where we are building a farmer's market at the old hospital place in downtown. We've already got the drawings for it, and we're going to use it as a food hub. But in order to qualify for these monies, we're also going to be using it as a tested site for COVID. And so, you know, what you really want to try to do is that you want to get you a plan and you want to get it in. It's very critical because it is first come, first serve. And I know at least in ERCOG, we've got, there are 7 counties in our district: Yancey, Madison, Yancey, Mitchell, Avery, Watauga, Ash, and maybe Allegheny. We were the second one to get a plan in for that card. I don't know where you are with Land of Sky, but you know, whatever kind of plans you got that you can relate to COVID, get those grant writers to write those up as quick as you can, get your public hearing scheduled. If you can get a plan written, I would encourage you, and it's a good plan, and go ahead and call you a special meeting.
Yes.
And get it done. It'd be critical to get your plan in. That's a lot of money, that's good money. $900,000, go a long way.
Mary, you were saying that you didn't think you could make the 27th
Well,
this month?
we can, I just need to know when we have to get it to Mandy in order for it to be considered. The clerk to get it considered.
Does it
Excuse me.
require the
You
10-day?
gotta have a 10, you gotta have a 10-day notice, but if you've got a plan, you can do your public hearing and you can adopt your
Same
plan
time.
and sign your resolution at the same
At the
meeting.
same time, yes.
Do you have any idea how long it would take? Do you have any plans or projects that are in the works?
This is where I will have to talk to staff. We have some things that we've discussed. I mean, if we want to do our assessment, I mean, some of the things that we've talked about, whether that's the ventilation system or the air filtration system at the administrative building, is looking at the duct system in all the buildings to see how we can separate or divide the different buildings. The health department's basement needs to be finished for it to be COVID test ready. There are projects available. There's economic development. There's some projects for consideration where we can apply funds in order for, we can create some jobs. There are projects, we just need to prioritize what we want to see and move those things forward.
All right, Terry, if you think you can meet the 27th, 2 weeks from, with help from a lot of us, let's target the 27th, gentlemen. Does anybody have a problem with that?
So Commissioner Webster will serve as a liaison to the Economic Development Board as well as a liaison to the
Hold on, I'm
Citizen
volunteering for
Participation Plan.
something.
And so,
Yeah, I'll second that.
you've been at our meetings, do you feel like we can decide on which priorities we want to focus? Because we'll get the grant writers, they're ready, we've met, and they're just, Terry, tell us the projects and we can start the research and the data gathering.
That's awesome.
Right. And Norris is talking about, you're talking about meeting October
Yes.
27th.
Yes, putting it on our
October,
27th.
yes, October 27th.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry, that's what Wayne was
That was
asking me
what I
for
was-
clarification on that. So, as far as working with the Economic Development Board, I think that's probably something very doable. I do know that Mitch had reported he's got a upcoming vacation at some point, and he's the chairman of that board. So we probably need to verify those dates, but otherwise, I think it's ambitious, but we can probably pull it together.
Is
That
there
board's
any-
pretty ambitious.
Is there any way we could do a special meeting in the first part of November just in case? Can you consider that?
It would look like that the first you could get your notice in the Madison paper would be,
They publish on the Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday, the first date would be the 28th for the Madison paper. If you got it in by the 17th for the Asheville Citizen Times, you could meet the 27th.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. So 28th, Mandy?
So if you send a notice to Asheville tomorrow, you could get it for the
It would
27th.
have to be sent by Thursday.
Okay, so we got 2 days to get it in.
The only thing,
Close the time, Terry.
the only
You
problem with
need
that
to-
is, for the next one, we have to say what we're going to do. And I will not have it, I know I will not have it by Thursday if we are to get additional citizen
Right.
input.
So, to my colleagues here on the board, why can't we do it at our regularly scheduled November meeting
The 10th,
on the 10th?
yeah.
That would give
Is that good?
plenty of time to get notice. That would
Yeah.
give the Economic Development Board plenty of time. Also, would probably give some much-needed time for the Health Department, which
We're gonna
that
discuss
what Norris
that
and I are
later.
dealing with tomorrow.
Yes.
So, as far as that goes, I think November 10th would probably be more doable. Terry, what do you think?
Is that good for you, Terry?
That's fine, and it's the Economic Development Board and the Citizen Participation Committee. And so that was who you all approved last time. It's just the Economic Development Board can provide more data or influence to how we can craft this. And so if you all will get with the Health Department
Yep.
and let me know what
Literally
their priorities
tomorrow.
are, but just keeping in mind, as soon as we get this information, we can get it drafted. And that money, Madison County can get $900,000 to really make a big impact for our community.
And is November 10th too late to put our thing in? Will the money be gone? Is that?
Okay, that's my only concern, Matt, was just make sure it wasn't too late to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest thing is, I don't want to, obviously, we want to take time so that it's not a haphazard approach.
Correct.
So we want to make sure we have our I's dotted and T's crossed, but, as far as that goes, I mean, I think hopefully, that's less than a month, so I think we should be able to get it turned around by then.
All right. Are we all in agreement?
Yep.
10th, and Mandy, put on a flag when we need to make sure that we get that out there.
And maybe we can have maybe that would be a good time to have a lighter agenda of regular business so we can focus on this and give it the time that it really needs.
Well, and traditionally, the meeting right after the election
Yeah.
is one of only essential business.
That's right.
That's sort of standard procedure.
So, yeah, I mean, there's always the possibility you could have two lame ducks at that meeting, so,
But we,
Right?
okay, we're all good on the 10th? Okay. All right.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, now I think we have to have a formal motion, do we not? Have we
No,
done that?
not at this one, you just need to close your public
Close the
hearing.
public hearing. I move we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor of closing the first public hearing? Okay, we have another, okay, good. All right. Moving on to number 5, Angela Garner from Via Health. Welcome.
Good
Thanks for
evening.
coming to talk to us.
Thank you. All right, thanks for having me tonight. So I'm just going to give a brief update on how VIA has responded due to the pandemic, and then what we're doing moving forward with the CARES funding that we received along with the other MCOs. So just briefly, VIA Health is a public managed care organization, and we're in contract with DHHS in North Carolina and manage taxpayer-funded plans for folks who have mental health, substance use, and intellectual and developmental disability needs. So for folks who have Medicaid or don't have insurance or are underinsured. And, we serve 22 counties in our catchment area. Madison, of course, being one of them, and then Alexander, Allegheny Ash, Avery, Buncombe, Caldwell, Cherokee, Clay, Graham, Haywood, Henderson, Jackson, Macon, McDowell, Mitchell, Polk, Swain, Transylvania, Watauga, Wilkes, and Yancey. So just some highlights of the sheet that you received. Don't fret, I'm not going to go over all that with you. I'm just going to hit those highlights. Again, DHHS really has been a great partner with all of the LMEs when the pandemic hit to sort of get things moving fast in the Medicaid world, which was nice. So CMS worked great with us. So basically, the priorities for VIA when all of this came about was to support our most at-risk areas first, which would be the walk-in centers, the crisis centers like the one here, mobile crisis, and then to provide hardship assistance and rate increases for providers, because things really started to get a little frightening for them, especially group homes that provide mental health services for kiddos and adults. And even though there may not be a lot of those group homes here in Madison, they are around here. And you do have members who live in group homes that could be in Wake County, all the way to Neck County, foster kids, children that have special needs, adults that have special adult needs. So making sure that we were able to send funding and hardship assistance to those to provide PPEs, because again, they had to be around those kids and adults 24/7. You had, of course, all the kiddos were out of school from March on, so helping to provide assistance for extra staff to be with those kids, because in settings like that, when kids are in school, you normally just have one staff, to be on call if there's an issue at school. So that was really something that we wanted to do. Another piece, which was huge across the state, which I'm sure y'all heard about, were the changes in the flexibility with Medicaid and how to bill, so how providers could bill to provide services. So we couldn't do in person. So Medicaid really worked quickly to provide codes for all of our providers to where they could bill for telehealth and virtual and telephonic visits. So that was helpful. Of course, you have folks that don't have smartphones or access to electronics. So VIA worked with Verizon and we purchased 500 smartphones. And we've actually distributed 460 of those so far. And we're just keeping 40 in reserve right now if we need them. So what we did was get with 15 providers. A lot of them are comprehensive providers and said, hey, who you know best, you deal with these members, who are the folks that need these phones to be able to participate in services? So they chose their members and then we had the phones and they came and picked the phones up. So, you know, it's interesting because it's like two-pronged here. You have members now that really had issues of not wanting to go out and socialize, didn't have transportation prior to this. So some people, when they received these phones, engaged in services that they never had before. However, then you have, you know, these other folks that just wasn't something that they could connect with. I know that personally with my doctor. It's weird speaking to someone on a screen. So some folks did have difficulties accessing that, so really it was two-pronged there. The main goal during this time is to maintain provider stability. So the providers are there to be able to provide the services to the members. That's the bottom line. So with the COVID funding, VIA and the other LMEs had asked the feds, hey, we really need some one-time funding here and allocation to help with what we spend and what we're going to be spending, especially due to the state reductions. As you probably know, there have been, for VIA alone, the General Assembly has cut, I think, around $500 million over the past 5 years. For VIA, it's been about $52 million of the cuts that we've received for the past almost 5 years. And when I say cuts, I mean funding reductions that came to us to help fund services for folks that don't have insurance or are underinsured. I'm not talking about Medicaid services. That's not funding reductions for the Medicaid population that we serve, but it has been for the uninsured and underinsured. So you couple all those funding reductions all these years, then COVID hits. And then VIA knew that we were going to be getting another $3.2 or $3.6 million reduction, and this is all the other LMEs as well, not just us, this fiscal year, and we did. However, we had planned for that prior to the fiscal year for that, before COVID hit, for the funding reductions. And so hard decisions had to be made. One of the reductions was for members who receive, and these are adults, who receive, call it ACT teams, CST teams, assertive community treatment teams, community support teams. These are folks who have high risk of hospitalization or have cycled in and out of state hospitals. And so these teams can see these members up to 3 times a week, and you have a doctor or a psychiatrist, a nurse, case manager. They come to your house 3 days a week. They manage your pills for you. They can come give you your shot, your antipsychotic shot. They can come help you with your health medications, help to take you to get your needs down at the health department met. So it's really to help keep those folks out. So of course members have Medicaid, still have that service. However, that was one of the funding reductions that had to be made as of July 1st. It was for uninsured or underinsured members who received those 2 services, had to step down to other outpatient services. Now, VIA had worked with the providers. They knew this was coming months and months ahead of time. So they're trying to get those folks who maybe hadn't applied for Medicaid, too afraid to go. Some folks just don't want to go deal in state offices, to help them apply for Medicaid, and if not, to step into other outpatient services. I say all that also to say, so we received this COVID funding. VIA's share of the COVID funding is around $14 million. But guess when that has to be spent by? December 30th. So again, VIA knew we were hoping we were gonna be getting COVID funds. So VIA had been meeting with, we call our PAC, our Provider Advisory Council, so it's providers all across our catchment area that have a say, because they're the ones who see these members. Basically, our leadership and provider network meeting with the PAC saying, hey, if we get this money, let's start figuring out where we can spend this money, because we know it's gonna come probably with a big time limitation. So, a few of the things that this money is going to be spent on is folks who did lose their service for Acton CST. They're able to get back on these teams for now anyway. So, and then there's money there also for these providers to reach out to folks into the community who have disappeared or haven't engaged. That will help hopefully to bring some of these folks back in for services. Now again, it will end, the money ends December 30th, but December 31st will be the last day of these authorizations that VIA will honor, to help get these folks back in, hopefully engaged in other services, even their medical services, maybe try to get them back on Medicaid. Some other this funding that is going to be spent on is more money going towards residential homes, like I talked a little bit about, for children and people that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. They basically, it goes in the form of hardship. They're going to get rate increases because they continue to spend more money because they need more staff, because these kids aren't in school, a lot of them, and these adults are also at home more because their day programs aren't open normally. More money is going to go towards mobile crisis, medication-assisted treatment. And again, these are folks that don't have insurance. I'm not talking about Medicaid. There will be money to help fund, of course now there's a wait list already, for Medicaid-assisted treatment for folks that need that, and then hopefully to step them down or out to another service after. Inpatient hospital beds. You know, VIA and the other MCOs have always worked with, like Mission, they have the psychiatric beds for kiddos and adults to help for uninsured beds. Of course, that money is gone so quickly. So some of this money to help for the beds, and you know, Madison County folks, as you well know, and Sheriff's Department, because they transport, use the services at Mission Hospital. Another piece would be to help for kids and adults who have eating disorders who don't have Medicaid to participate in a program called Tapestry in Buncombe County as well. That's a few of that. Just numbers in your county, I always like to share that, and I sent this to you. Of course, we're always a little behind how the data is gathered, so this is for August. So this number here, 517 members in August. These are just overall, kids in schools, adults receiving counseling, receiving any type of service that goes through VIA. That's 517 Madison County members receive services. Out of those, 90 of those 517 receive a care manager. Why do they receive a care manager? Well, some of these folks have a lot of chronic health needs, so mental health needs, substance use needs, so they have a care manager to help them navigate the system, whether it's the child world or in the adult world, to help them navigate their mental health, substance use, medical appointments. They could be in the hospital. And then out of those 90 in Madison, there were 369 contacts with those folks. Narcan, talk a little bit about Narcan. VIA was able to distribute Narcan to all of our counties last year through a grant. And so last year we were able to give, I think, around 80 kits. And normally my contact is Heather Sharp at the health department, so she ensures that that gets out to law enforcement, EMS, harm reduction. And then we received another grant when COVID hit. And so we were able to send another 80 kits to Heather at the health department. She probably received that a month or so ago, I'd imagine, here in Madison County. Another thing I want to hit on is, of course, we're beyond the month, and I know we've had an unfortunate tragedy here in Madison County in the schools, and unfortunately there was one in Polk County. So September was Suicide Awareness Month. So we do have training. It's called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer. It's a free 2-hour training online. Anyone can get online and register for it in the community. It doesn't matter who you are. So it's on our website. It's trained by a qualified trainer for that. Another piece, I was talking today actually with Access Family Services, because they are your school mental health provider that are in the schools here. And they're going to be meeting with Dr. Ramsey and I think maybe some of the kids and teachers to, I'm not in charge of that, so I don't want to speak for that. I just want you to know that you do have a mental health provider here that is responsive and is reached out to Dr. Ramsey, and he's been great. He said, yes, please come to our meeting. We're having some meetings on this and how can we support our teachers and students. And Dr. Ramsey had also asked Access Family Services, Victoria's the director, about maybe looking into youth mental health first aid. That is not a free training, but it's something that we will talk about with Access Family and see what Dr. Ramsey wants for the teachers. But I should address that since that was recent. Any questions? Okay. I'll probably come back talking about Medicaid transformation next year. If no one here about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Item 6 is Caleb Stenza, our Emergency Services Director. Caleb, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. A short presentation here. I'll go along. All right, gentlemen, this is a bit of a continuation of what we spoke about at the last meeting. This one in particular is about the Rich Mountain repeater. I think that's how I'm speaking. This is a repeater that the two gentlemen from the fire department spoke about last time they were having trouble with. It is about replacing the entire system for the fire and EMS portion of that repeater. What you see up here is Rich Mountain. That's our tower site, and some of the equipment on that tower site is the ones that we're hoping to replace here. We'll go into more detail on that. As I spoke about last time, we have 4 radio tower repeaters in the county. You can see Ducky Pop on the bottom left there. Spring Creek got Rich Mountain, which is the top left one, which is the one we're speaking about tonight. You have the Laurel North repeater there at the top right, and you have the Big Knob repeater on the right. The Big Knob on the right is the one we were getting the antenna fixed for. We spoke about the last meeting. No, it's been ordered, but it hasn't been installed yet. There's a lead time to get the antenna because it's custom made, but it's in progress, so I'll give you an update as soon as we have one on that. So the Rich Mountain fire repeater there is marked. There's a little red X below that arrow. If you can see that, that's the location of it. It provides radio coverage for basically all but 2 of our volunteer fire departments in the county. So it covers a huge area. You can see Walnut, Laurel, Hot Springs, Country, Spring Creek, Big Pond, even parts of F. Chapel's district can be served by Rich Mountain. So this is a major coverage area that we're hoping to improve greatly with this project. The current status, it has Motorola equipment, a repeater, a duplexer, which allows for transmission to and from a single antenna, a power amplifier, related wiring and cables. Most of this was installed in the early 2000s. To be honest, a lot of it, the paperwork is basically gone. It's not certain, but it's very old. It's well past its lifespan, and it's ready for replacement. The proposed upgrades in your packets, we have 3 quotes we received from local radio vendors, 2 of them out of Asheville, 1 of them is out of Arden. The fire chief's radio committee has recommended the quote from Radio Communications Company is the most capable option. That particular quote has receive-only antenna located at a high point on the tower itself, and below that it'll have the transmit antenna. The other 2 quotes work off a single antenna, which is, the single antenna is what the current system has here. A newer one of any of these would be an improvement, but that particular quote is the one that they would recommend as the most capable.
And that's from the radio committee?
Yes, that's from the fire chiefs. And we've gone, yeah, we've shown them all these quotes and shown what we can do. Another reason why the radio communications company quote would be a benefit to the county is that it's a different setup like I spoke of, so it'll allow us for our larger plans, which we have our long-term plans for radio improvements across the county, it allows us to kind of test out a different type of system than what we currently have been using, and just see if it's a benefit, if we can use that particular style, or if we want to go with a different style with the other things. But this one would be usable more than likely in any major improvement as well. It's modern equipment and it has a lot of interoperability to it.
So this is a little bit of a test case just to try it before we buy it sort of thing for the whole county?
Sort of, yes, but it is, this Harris Tate repeater, it's qualified. They're one of the big companies in the radio world. They have some of the best equipment out there, so it's a quality equipment. It's just a different type. It's like Chevy versus Ford kind of thing. There's just a couple of different choices out there in the world, so it's just a different setup. Timeline with it, it'll be about 6 weeks if and when any of these quotes are approved. Just takes that time to get the antennas ordered, get everything set up. It'll be installed by a professional tower climber, and you'll see that in each one of your quotes. And yeah, the main thing we wait on for those type of things is the antenna and then scheduling the tower climber. The rest of the equipment is pretty much can get ordered and delivered within a week or 2. So in conclusion, we're requesting approval of one of those quotes, and again, we did have the fire chief's radio committee recommend the one by Radio Communications Company. Do you have any questions, gentlemen?
What type of warranty do we get, or what do they offer with it?
Yeah, so our radio maintenance vendor is one of these companies currently, that's the one that installed most of the equipment across the county. They do the radio maintenance. Each one of these particular ones, it depends on the piece of equipment, what kind of, I guess, warranty you have on it, the antenna versus the actual repeater, the radio itself, and the cabling. They're all rated to last at least 5 to 10 years, but I don't have an exact date for each individual piece on that.
So that's more of the anticipated life versus actual warranty though, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a contract with the one that's working on it now?
We have a maintenance contract, primarily for the equipment in 911, but also for the maintenance on the existing equipment. The thing about this is it can't be maintained, it needs to be replaced really. There's nothing to maintain on it anymore, so to speak. They can do annual or semi-annual project maintenance on it and just try to get it up to speed and you know, make sure things are screwed in and all that sort of thing, but this is past that point, so maintenance won't get us fixed anymore.
Right.
But what I'm asking, are we gonna use if we go with this group, are we gonna use them for the overall maintenance and everything?
That'd be something we can discuss. The contract we have has been year to year, each fiscal year with the current vendor, but that's something we can discuss as far as changing it, adjusting it. Part of it is paid for because it is connected into our 911 system through state funds, but then the majority of the radio equipment is paid by local funds and not paid for that, but there is some, I guess, coverage of that by 911 state funds that come into the county.
So we're not gonna run into any hurdles with the state if we try to change providers or anything like that?
No, they won't have any issues with that, as long the contracts are pretty set as far as what is allowed in that, so any provider we have that has our equipment, our radio equipment maintenance would be able to handle both sides. It's pretty standard.
Do you know what it costs for, radio maintenance as far as the contract each year?
It adjusted. We just upgraded our phone system. We used to have our vendor control our 911 phone answering equipment at the 911 center and our radio dispatch equipment at 911 center, as well as all the tower sites. The phone equipment is now a statewide contract through AT&T that's paid for by the state, and I'm still working with the 911 board about what's still allowed, what's not. We installed it back in February, And we've still been working on getting it up to speed and finished, so I don't have an exact price and what they will allow yet on that.
So let me make sure I understand then. So really the big difference between the top two quotes, which is $4,000. So we're not talking about a tremendous amount of money.
Yes.
But nonetheless, with the RCC quote, we're getting a more comprehensive antenna system. Is that the safest way to categorize that?
Yes, that'd be accurate.
Okay.
And one other thing with that antenna system, right now it's just gonna be plugged into the radio repeater for fire EMS, but that same antenna, if we were to upgrade the law repeater, the actual radio and the emergency management repeater in the same cabinet there, if we were to replace those, we can use that existing antenna for both of those to be able to handle all three of those channels at the same time.
So that's where it comes into play with our longer term plans of
Yes.
improving the service throughout the entire county.
Yes.
Okay.
The other systems we have would be one antenna connected to one repeater with a duplexer that allows that one antenna to both send and receive. That's basically the difference there.
And Tate has proven out to be a reliable company for other agencies that have used them?
Yes, they're used in Buncombe County and then around the world. They're based out of New Zealand, but they're used, like I said, around the world. They're not quite as well known as Motorola, but they're a top tier radio company. They're used a lot in military and different contracting.
So as far as service goes, we're not gonna run into issues where we're buying something that might be obsolete, whereas potentially with Motorola, it's kind of the old standard.
Yeah, any one of these is going to be new equipment, and it's going to be usable, like I said, for at least 5 or 10 years. The equipment we had is the same way, but you could stretch it out for 20 years like we did with this one.
Sure.
But any one of them is modern, and it can handle all the newest standards, can handle digital, and we can go into detail about what digital can be and what it can cover and that sort of thing. But it can handle basically any upgrade, and a big part of it can handle upgraded programming, which can give it more capability as well.
Good. And the fire departments that are gonna, fire department EMS is gonna be primarily using this antenna system. Is their radios are already, the radios they already have are compatible with everything here. They're not gonna have to go through any upgrades.
That's correct, yeah. The existing radio, when we have the new system, they can key up the same way and hopefully much better coverage, much better receive and transmit than they currently have.
Yeah, Caleb worked very close with the working group that has helped to make this thing come. And it is definitely an integral part of the ongoing long-term plan. Also, Carrie and I have worked on the budget, and those funds are available.
Well, I make a motion, we go with, David recommending
RCC. I will second that motion.
Discussion. All in favor? Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great work.
Let's see what, the new guys will do the, upkeep, you know, if they can give a price, like the guys.
Understood.
Thank his name. But, he's been here for years, but see if they can, upkeep his prices.
Will do.
And Caleb, thank the members of your working group. Okay, for all their help and input.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, just curious, and this may not be an answer for Caleb, but I don't know who would be eligible to answer this. In reading the diagnosis of our problems, it seems pretty clear that they determined that the cause was suffered by a lightning strike. Has anyone looked into the possibility that any county insurance policy may cover that equipment?
Yes and no.
Yes, you did, and the answer was no. Okay, the reason I ask, most of the time, most policies,
Insurance man.
most policies exclude radio towers and things of that nature, but I didn't know if the county had.
Unfortunately, ours does.
Okay,
That's
very
a
good.
great question.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
A very, very valid question, man.
Thank
And
you.
also another issue, we don't seem to be able to tie down the time.
Terry Bellamy,
Yeah.
please come back with us.
You'd
Talk
have to
about
pick a
high-speed
date
internet,
off.
please, ma'am.
There's ways to do that.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb.
Chairman Goforth, members of the commission, tonight, I just asked for two things, and instead of doing a PowerPoint presentation, because you can't hear me if I turn my back. And so, And it's just very briefly, the RFP that I put before you, it is for consideration of expansion of broadband in Madison County. All the details are provided before you. I don't have anything to add that's not in your packet, and I can answer any questions that you may have. And please note, your attorney has had the opportunity to review the information, and the reason we're issuing it is because the state of North Carolina's general statutes require us to issue an RFP whenever we're issuing dollars related to broadband.
Don, you look over?
I have, and Norris and Terry have worked diligently on this, and we have plans, and in fact, we may already be able to fit this proposed grant into something that we've been working on. This would be a fantastic project to reach a lot of areas in Madison County. This is just the last step to being able to implement
So you good with it?
that. I'm good with it, yes, sir.
And you all will actually see the final documentation from the proposals that we received. And so this is just the request proposals. And the template that you have is from the state of North Carolina.
It reads well.
All right. If there's no other questions, I will move we approve.
Second?
Discussion. All in favor? Thank you.
And the other component is just to develop a broadband committee. In 2019, Madison County had the development of a broadband study and looking at what do we need to do to increase the level of deployment, increase users, increase the number of people who had access. And so as a result of that study, it said that one of the recommendations is for Madison County to create a broadband committee. Well, the Madison County Economic Development Board has recommended that this committee be created, and it reports actually to the Economic Development Committee. And if there are any recommendations, they can vet it and then bring it to this body for consideration. And so tonight I'm asking for your consideration of a committee that will look at the issue of broadband maps and see where we actually have coverage, where we need to increase coverage, to work with service providers on their plans to see how Madison County can be a part of that process as well.
Any of that?
Actually, any comments on that?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is it's critical that we continue to look at this, because if you look at the providers' maps, they claim that every person in our county has service.
Yes.
And
We know it's not true.
we all know that that's not true. So the biggest thing too, and one of the things we just recently talked about was participating in the speed testing.
Yes.
Because just because you might, they consider if you've got a cell phone that you could have Wi-Fi service. And I mean, there's just so many variables that come into play. So I believe that we're going to, if I'm putting the cart before the horse, Terry, stop me. But I think we're going to need to, are you stopping me or telling me?
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So I think one of the things that we need to do is encourage our residents, and we're going to start a program to encourage our residents to take the speed tests that are available out there online. And if you don't have service, you can still go to the library or someplace that does, but just make sure you tell them that you're having to go to the library because you don't have it at your house. So it's really key. The broadband is something that this county has lacked for a long time. We've made tremendous progress thanks to a lot of hard work from Terry, from Sarah before Terry, from Forrest Gilliam as well. There's a lot of people who deserve credit for all this. And also, I don't want to slight French Broad. We appreciate them very much for their part of it as well. But it's a big thing. We've got to have it. We need to keep striking while the iron's hot, because right now, at least with the current administration that's in D.C., this is a hot topic for them.
There's last mile money.
Yeah, and so right now, it's there for the taking. We've got to be prepared to continue to move forward and get that, and this is a good step in that. So I thank Terry for the hard work she's put in on it to carry the program on, so.
I take that as a motion, Commissioner Webster?
I'll make it as a motion.
I will second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you, Matt.
All right.
No worries. Thank you, Terry.
We have our Human Resources Director, Brooke Ledford. Good evening.
Good evening. Each year, the county provides an annual holiday meal for its employees as a form of employee appreciation. This year, due to the coronavirus, we aren't going to be able to have that holiday meal as usual. So since the county will not be able to have the holiday meal this year, I would like to propose an alternative way to show employee appreciation. I would like to propose giving employees an additional Employee Appreciation Day holiday to use between the dates of November 1st through January 4th, 2021. Employees will submit leave requests to their supervisors for approval before using the day, and no county office will be closed for any additional days by adding this day. Madison County employees are hardworking and dedicated, so I think they would be very appreciative of this.
What did the department heads, have you talked to them about it, about that time frame?
Not yet. The thought behind it was, you know, we have several holidays in that period that they could potentially have a longer holiday break for Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. But we haven't discussed it yet.
If we approve it, it will be presented to them tomorrow morning at the department meeting. It's on that agenda, but we wanted approval of it first before we.
What happens if we have an employee that does not?
They just lose it.
I'm sorry?
They would just lose it.
You don't use it, you lose it.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
If it doesn't roll over, it's not paid out.
Does it affect our budget anyway?
Yeah.
No. It's a holiday.
It's just an additional day that they can take.
It's just like a floating holiday or an optional personal leave day type
I think
thing.
it sounds mean, but I just want to make sure, I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
a question to ask with our budget being
Yeah, because
tight.
our little
Okay, thank you.
dinner cost, there was a cost to that.
Right.
And if we had that in the budget, then where are we? Are we below that?
We had, I think, a little over $1,000 in the budget for the employee appreciation meal. That, I guess, would be redelegated.
Yes, that's money that never spent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was quite a discussion about doing something that every employee could benefit from. And of course, you know, the famous story of the $50 gift cards.
Yeah.
We can't go there.
Yeah.
And Brooke and I and several others, we had a discussion, and this is not an atypical thing. A lot of other people do this for other reasons, a lot of businesses do it.
Yeah.
And
especially
it
this
was on
year.
her initiative. I think it's a great idea, and I think employees will appreciate it. We
A
can make
lot
it
of our
work, we say
employees
without
have put in-
closing any department.
A lot of our employees have been working well over their
Yes.
regularly scheduled work
Yeah.
week. So it's nice.
I'll make a motion.
Motion here, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke. Great idea.
Carrie Ledford, our finance officer, good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen. For you, please find for your approval, item A, which is the budget amendment number 4. This amendment records additional funds for your Department of Social Services from the state to further help families during the pandemic. For your approval, budget amendment number 4 records moving money from our contingency to cover unexpected legal fees as well as expenses related to the holding of surplus property. You can see where we're moving lapsed salaries from the tax assessor's office to the tax collector's office, to their regular salary line for the additional hours needed as the tax bills have been sent out. The Board of Elections have been awarded a sub-grant from the State Board of Elections for $17,500 to help with the mitigation of the coronavirus on Election Day. The details of this are within your packets. You'll receive that we are recording the funds awarded to the Parks and Rec Department from the Community Foundation of North Carolina, and you agreed to accept these funds at your last meeting for the Barnard Park improvements.
And if I'm reading this correctly, once it's all said and done, there will be an addition to the contingency, is that correct? Or am I looking at that incorrectly?
You're looking at that incorrectly.
Okay. So that is where the legal fees come into play, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That and the HOA fees for surplus property.
And so, Mr. County Attorney, did we not did we not determine a year or two ago that we're not responsible for the HOA fees on the properties that we foreclose on?
Well, I think you did some research on that.
Okay.
So did I.
And I did some research on that, and I think we took the position that we're not gonna pay them.
Okay.
And no one has filed any kind of lawsuit against us since that time in order to try to collect those HOA fees, am I right?
We have been turned over to the collection agency if we didn't pay them by the end of this month.
Oh, that's what they've told us
Yes.
on this occasion.
Yes.
But you remember, I think it was 2 years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had spoken to maybe someone from Haywood County or Pennsylvania
I
County
believe it was Haywood County, yes.
who had advised you that they did not pay them and no recourse was taken against them.
Correct.
And I believe my opinion was that's something that they said, there's no law that has been made regarding that position being taken, and that if we elect not to pay them, we may be subject to a lawsuit. We elected not to pay them, and those particular people have not taken any action against us.
Okay.
So what I would tell you is that if you don't pay them, we'll see what happens. But you can take that position since you've already taken it once before. I mean, if they did happen to sue us, I'll be more than happy to defend you. It worked 2 years ago, Mr. Wagner.
Correct.
So you've got a track record.
Continue on. And do you remember the other conversation we had too? I think it was here, I'm not sure who brought it up, it's too long ago. Was if we're paying HOA fees for something, that means the county owns that property as far as that. That means any resident of Madison County can go up there in that wonderful place and use it for their recreation. Do they want that to happen? I don't think they do. Just saying. They want to play hardball, we can throw it back. Okay.
You know, you're gonna get letters all the time that somebody will file an action against you to enforce something.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, we got that letter 2 years ago and nothing ever happened. Now, they may follow through, they may not. That's your choice.
Understood. I think it's a good choice. I don't want to pay it.
That being the case, I would move that we accept budget amendment number 4 to be modified to exclude the payment of HOA fees on tax foreclosed properties.
I'll second that. Discussion. All in favor? Okay.
Hey, Joe.
Good job.
No,
I guess
and I'll
we can
make
over
that,
and pay our
difference
bill.
will be back in contingency, that'll be where it difference that will be back.
That's fine. Yeah, I probably should have stated that. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, that's where we'll go back to.
Thanks for fixing me.
Okay.
Okay, next item B, you have September's financial report.
Yes.
On the top of the first page, you will see that we are 25% into our FY21 budget. For all the funds, we have received 15.62% of our revenues. This is below where we should be, but it's normal, because we get our high percentage of our revenue between now and the end of the year in the form of our property taxes. Our expenses are at 20.06%. Your department directors are doing a great job at keeping our expenses down and being mindful of unnecessary costly purchases during this time.
I think that's more than FYI.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
We good, gentlemen?
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
It's come the time of our meeting now. We now go to our county manager's report. Mr. Gentry.
Now we open the second one. Okay. To follow up on revenue for a moment, the state tax revenue reported to us last month, which is obviously several months behind, but for the same month, year to year, $417,179.75. Same month last year was $366,579.74. Carrie and I have discussed this, and I've discussed it with some other folks that are blessed to be rural. We're buying online. Matt and I talked about it, I think we all did. Now, 1 month does not a year make, but at least for that first month, we have benefited while the normal urban commercials have obviously not. We also continue to have a below state average unemployment rate here. And so there's several factors. Okay? Now, we are returning to the 4th Tuesday work session. So let's talk about time for that. Okay? We have traditionally had it in the late evening, and I know, Matt, your schedule is very difficult. But it's also just like tonight and other nights, and we got into this before over the years, and we're not poor from budget, but we're going to have a lot of people coming at us. We're going to go back to the process that we used previously for the development of the budget, and that takes a lot of our staff's time. So do we want to try to move those meetings a little earlier in the day? I will do my dead level best to try to create an agenda that will not exceed 2.5 hours, unless we all just get long-winded. Okay, we will be item specific in those meetings like we used to be. And so do we want to keep trying to have those at 5:30 in the afternoon, or do we want to move them up in the day? So tell me what your wishes are, gentlemen.
I think Matt's the one that's got a regular 8 to 5 job, so.
I would request it at least for this month, especially considering the election activities and whatnot that need to be taking place as well, and have a little bit of demand on my time.
Sure.
Could we please stay in the 5:30, 6 o'clock range, at least for this time?
Oh, cool.
If still here, I would be more than willing to entertain moving it forward, or moving it up earlier going forward.
Okay, so 5:30, 6 o'clock. Just tell me and Mandy so we can schedule.
Let's do 5:30 then. Let's don't leave it open if 5:30 is
Dinner
okay.
will be provided, simple dinner, and we are meeting in room 26 in admin, room 26. All right. We have several ongoing projects. You got an email from me earlier today in regards to a organized and committed effort to now complete the 2-year incomplete playground that we know sits in front of the health department. That is going to be, as per my email, quite a process, but we have a plan in place to proceed forward with that.
Good. I hope our plan has a parking area for that.
You will note that that was in the email today.
Yeah.
Yes. And we also have some safety and security considerations that have to be taken in that were not in the original planning. One of the most serious aspects is that steep back bank. If you go look at the site, which will require almost certainly some modification to the plan, because originally there was supposed to be a walking path literally right there with no fence, no barrier, anything. But a whole group of us met today. We're going to continue, and we're laying out a plan to proceed. And the other thing is, this needs to be done right. It's high profile, it's highly visible, and we need to make sure that we do it right. And we've already invested enough money in it, but we need to determine what we need to do and how we're going to get it done, and get it done. It's been dragging for 2 years.
Are there any members of the community that might want to help partner in some of those expenses, maybe in exchange for a plaque to recognize their business for helping
I
us
think
with
that's an
the...
excellent idea. And in fact, tomorrow when we meet at the health department, because Tammy's involved, I'm going to bring you up to speed on some of what happened today.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Fair enough, thank you.
I think as many partners as we can put into that, because the community's going to be using it.
Right.
We don't have hardly any of those facilities in Madison County. So we want to make sure it's right, we want to make sure it's available to be used, and it's maintained. See, there was no proposal in the original park for any maintenance of it. And we know that's an immediate, ongoing, and budgeted need. Otherwise, it'll fall into disrepair before it's even finished. Yeah. Okay, is Mr. Craig Sullivan in the house? Come on up, Craig. Thank you for coming and visiting us tonight.
Glad to be here, Just wanted to touch base with you all. We've been up, Madison Medics has been up and running now for 3 months. I want to thank you all first for your support and confidence and trust. Give you a quick update, the transition went very smooth. We did have 100% employee retained. Got all the new equipment in service. Everything's went very, very smooth from our standpoint. Just want to get some feedback from the commissioners and kind of see what your all's thoughts are. Also want to touch base with you a little bit about the garage at the Marshall base and that property. There needs to be a garage there. I don't have a problem building it at my expense, but I would like to, moving forward, to have some way to, where I'm just not throwing money down a hole if I'm not the provider here in 5 years. So with your all's permission, one, I'd like to get permission to go ahead and start on that project, and two, maybe have my attorney work out something, and of course it'd come back before the board before we did anything, of course. But I guess first, let me get some feedback from y'all on the service orders. Is everything going to suit, commissioners?
From service standpoint, I've heard nothing but complimentary things so far. Michelle's done an excellent job sending us updates and things of that nature when you guys reach certain milestones and reach some accomplishments and goals. I have nothing negative to say about the transition and the services that have been provided. Everything I've heard has been positive so far.
The same for me. It's great to have brand new equipment here. I know firsthand how well it's run.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that bunch. It means a lot.
I have had personal experience with a member of my family that needed the service, and it could have not been anything better than excellent.
Good.
And I want to put that on the record.
There's always an open line of communications. If that ever changes, please let me know.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any questions for us or anything?
Just on that base property is with it.
And that is in the process of tonight's meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Safe travels back up north.
Okay.
Take care. A couple of other things before we get into what's the other items listed. The documents of freedom, they have staked those out on the courthouse lawn.
Excellent.
And I have been talking again, though, with the folks in the maintenance department of the town of Marshall and our department, and there is worry of what we don't know that's under there and all that weight. So we did reach out to the folks and see if they might be willing to locate them in a different location based on the unknown infrastructure that's under there. They are completely agreeable to do whatever we want to do, okay? No issues whatsoever. And one of the places that has been discussed is in front of the magistrate's office at the jail magistrate's location. That is one place that was discussed. No commitments have been made on any place at all. I don't know if we need to try to do some exploratory work under the ground there before we add all that additional weight. I think it came in much heavier than what we thought it was going to be. They're also going to have to remove the 100-plus-year-old stones and other things to get access to the site. They're probably pretty fragile. Very concerned they may not be able to be returned to the site. It's more than just removing the benches. They want to remove the other because getting access with concrete trucks.
You're referring to the curbing, those slabs of, I think, granite or
They
whatever
are
they are that makes up the curbing.
Yeah, and they brought this issue up first.
Yeah.
Okay, after they staked it out. But we know the old storm drain, but we don't know anything else that's under there.
Right.
That both belongs to us and to the town, except it's old and it's probably not very deep. Okay, and I guess it's just a concern we start working there and we get a call that the front lawn of the courthouse is caved in. Maybe out of an abundance of caution. And if we need to think about it before we meet again in a couple of weeks, They are prepared to start soon, okay?
Right.
And we know we want to get it done, but out of abundance of caution, if we're comfortable with another location, I'm comfortable with the other location, so I'm bringing that discussion into the thing here.
I'd like to see it at the courthouse, because of what it is.
Yeah.
Now, there is one other little side thing. When we occupy all of that front yard, basically, there are people involved with the Christmas pageant and others that are concerned they will have no place other than the middle of the street for that. And we're sort of boxed in, guys, somewhere.
We can't put this over to the left at the courthouse. We'll go to the left if you're going up this sidewalk. To the left.
We would have to move a couple of other existing monuments, and I don't know, but you do have the left sideway, that's a good point.
I know that ground's okay.
Well, what we would do, we don't know, again, we don't know what's under there, but we know the rolling drain's not under there, the storm drain.
It's on the other side. We know
Yeah,
it's on the
yeah.
other side.
It goes right under sidewalk essentially. I thought we determined that.
Yeah,
Did we not?
but again, it does not have an issue with the old storm drain. You want me to approach them about moving it to the left?
Yeah, I would like that. I think that would be the alternative. That would be good. What's the rest of the board think?
Yeah, I mean, this open discussion, guys.
I would say do it up to the magistrate's office, what you're talking about, then there's no doubt. We don't know what's underneath what you're saying, courthouse alone.
My concern, go ahead, I'm sorry, Wayne.
I'm looking at availability to the public.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
That's
The point of having them there
the point of having it, yeah.
is to put it in a high-traffic area where people will be exposed to it. I think if you put it at the magistrate's office, it's gonna be a destination versus something that people just kind of happen to come across. I don't necessarily, not opposed to it. My second choice, I think, would be possibly in the vicinity of the early college.
In the courtyard at the early college.
Well, I know, my only concern there, though, is I think that Will Hoffman has at some point secured a grant to make that into a rain garden, that area. And that's some sort of a stormwater grant program. So I'm not so sure that it would fit right there. That would be ideal, in my opinion, place to put it, but I think they already have committed that property to something else.
Well, there are actually two small pieces of property there. One would be the courtyard between the buildings,
Right.
and the other one would be the traffic circle. But I'm happy to reach out to Will. I'm happy to look at them. And guys, we'll be back together in 2 weeks. That's not going to hold up the project.
That's fine.
Okay.
So let me investigate both of those.
Look at all three sides.
Keep
yes.
it all the
Yes.
sides.
Yes.
And then we'll have more information when we get back together.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, now into the structured portion. We are still doing some work on the solid waste proposal for that equipment, and since a major portion of our next meeting work session will be around solid waste and the whole issues, I am deferring the actual moving forward with that vehicle till that meeting.
You're referring to the Volvo?
That is correct.
Okay.
You will see a VIA Health handout in your book. It's actually some more information on the Madison County services that were provided. All right. Moving on to a building service contract. Mandy's done quite a bit of work on this. This is a very small, but guys, it's contracted. So, needs our approval. The carpets that we put in general admin, to put it politely, they get dirty as sin. We are regularly cleaning them with COVID money right now. So when you see them on 26, they're going to look a whole lot better than they used to do. But when bad weather and traffic, we need to put some better mats.
Yeah.
These are fundamentally commercial mats, and she's been able to get what I think is an unbelievable rate on them. And they're also looking at some other materials that we buy, that we can buy from them cheaper than you can haul Sam's away. So we're asking for permission to execute very modest contract with UniFirst. Now, these mats also have logos. They have county logos on them, so they're going to look really nice when people come through the front door.
Are we buying those mats, or is it essentially a lease?
Excuse me. Mandy, I think this is just a lease and service, isn't it?
It would be a contract for 3 years, and the minimum drop-off and pickup fee one time would be $25. That's the least amount that they'll come for drop-off and pickup. They'll do it at a rate of one time per month, so that was the least amount of drop-off and pickup that any company around would provide.
Other questions?
So that's the 25 a month is just simply for the service of that. I would imagine there's some startup costs, or no?
There's not.
Really?
No.
The mats do not total $25 a month, so if you only wanted to do the mats, that's fine, but then you'll need to pay the rest of the remainder of the fee.
Sure.
Just to reach the $25 threshold for them to drop off and pick up.
Wow.
And you see some of the other items in there that we
Yeah, well, it
purchased.
makes sense to take advantage of that if we've got a, that's like going to a club with a 2-drink minimum. I mean, you know,
That's right.
you gotta get your
Me
money.
and you.
You gotta get your money's worth.
All drinks are not created equal.
All right.
All right, I do need a motion on that,
I'll
gentlemen.
make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion, gentlemen. All in favor?
All right, now, the next one is a right-of-way. And we also have to have approvals for right-of-way. This is actually the third time, and this is for the continuing work on the Barnard Bridge. And it's a entry agreement by Southern Road and Bridge, and you see it attached. It's quite standard. Again, this is the third one of these provided to us by NCDOT on behalf of the contractor. But I need permission from the board to execute this continued agreement.
Have the bats gone south for the winter? Are we safe to work? Is that what it is?
Well, I think it's just, nobody can get to the work.
Is that what it
There's
is?
such a shortage of construction labor all over the place. And you know what, it's driving across the state highways through the roof.
Absolutely.
You and I, it's, but anyway, I need the board's approval to continue this agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay.
All right, the next item is information regarding the acceptance of the funds to finish a certain house, I will not name, which has been in an incomplete status on a grant that goes back over a decade. With the help of Land of the Sky Regional Council and some good folks in Raleigh, we have been granted an additional $8,421.91 with no additional funds required by the county. And we are looking on the 20th, Donnie's actually going with us. We have a person who will look at this, and hopefully we will get this project closed after a decade.
Good.
But I do need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank God.
All right.
That's what scares me about.
We also have a continuing contract for school nurses. This has already gone through the school system and the health department. We just need to approve it. It's been approved by both. Okay, I don't mind. I'll move on that one. Do we have a second?
Second.
One second.
Discussion? All in favor? It's pretty cookie cutter.
All right, the next item is the standard official that we need to approve. We are having Deputy Jeffrey Neal, who's been with the sheriff's office, I believe, 20 years, gentlemen?
20 years, yeah.
He is officially retiring, and it's standard procedure to allow him to purchase his Glock handgun for $1.
This is his service firearm.
Service
correct?
firearm,
Yes.
so that the sheriff and the chairman can sign, and he can be granted that firearm.
I make that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Anybody that don't know Jeff, I'm sure everybody that does know him knows he's.
Oh, he's
he's
been
an
outstanding-
guy.
outstanding
Yeah,
officer.
One of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and a good law enforcement.
All right.
Discussion? All in favor?
Okay. All right, now we move to item H. That we need to have an open discussion relative to the placement of political signs at our convenience centers. And I open that for general discussion.
So the signs in question resulted from a complaint, a citizen complaint, that there were political signs at the convenience site in Marshall. Those signs, just from personal knowledge, were outside the fence of the convenience site, outside on DOT right-of-way, which is, at this time frame, is currently legal to do. So my argument would be, if signs are going to be limited at a dump site, then what limits, why are we going to allow signs on other county property? And there's hundreds of them that are on other issues, other areas of county property. So I think, if you do it for whatever, I think we have to be conscientious of the fact that if we do it for one, we need to do it for all. There's been a controversial issue over signs near on the bypass in Marshall. Someone had complained to the DOT. The individual in that case complained about one specific individual sign instead of all the signs that were there. But in DOT's eyes was, if they had a complaint for one, that applies to a complaint for all, and so they all had to be moved. I totally understand that. Those signs did not fall within the guidelines set forth in the general statute. But the signs that are under discussion in regards to the ones outside the convenience centers, which would also apply to the ones at the admin building, at the finance office, every piece of county-owned property, in my opinion, those signs fall within the statute that allows the signs to be placed in the DOT right-of-way for a certain period of time. And we are within that window. Mr. County Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that. I assume you've seen the statute from the State Board of Elections and the legislature.
You recited the statute and your interpretation of it is correct. I will add that under the statute, the landowner, even if it is on public right-of-way, must give permission for the signs that meet the regulations to be placed there. Now, the county the property is public, and if you allow the public access to that, it becomes what we call a limited public forum, which you let one person use it, then you must let all of them use it in the same manner. You cannot discriminate vis-a-vis one person or another person. So if you allow folks to use the public property for whatever purpose, whether that may not even be politics, then you need to grant all folks the same reason to do it. Or you've got the opportunity to shut it down and say no activity can occur there. My recollection is that Madison County has not been placing any restrictions on the use of public property. So I think Mr. Wechtel is correct. As long as folks are complying with the guidelines of the statute, it is on public property, you permit the signs to be placed there.
And Mr. Counselor, under the current statute that I was referring to, that is specifically addressing political signs. So from that standpoint, other signs that are in the DOT right-of-way at other times of the year the DOT has the discretion to remove those signs at any point in time, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is up to DOT if it is in the right of way. I do not think we can tell those folks who are placing signs on their property for public purposes, if they're announcing something, I don't think we can tell them that they have to remove them, but I think DOT certainly can because they are within the right of way.
And outside the argument of the political signs, we've all gone through and gone past, I mean, I know I have the convenience center in Mars Hill, for example, and there'll be a sign out there that advertises a benefit dinner for someone who may be ill or someone who unexpectedly passed away and the family's having problems, and there's a sign out there saying, hey, come to this spaghetti dinner or hot dog dinner or whatever the situation is to help support this family. In my opinion, again, we're going down a slippery slope. If we're going to take down political signs, then those signs would also fall into that category.
I don't think so. I mean, you've got to separate politics from signs like that. That's, I don't think so. And on the signs at the trash dumps, it's always been that you put them on the opposite side. It's not that you put them up on the fence, and that's they're not on the fence, but you know they've stuck them right there at the fence line. So
and the purpose,
and I disagree with that. You know, you can put them across from there; it's not a problem. But when you're putting them just right there at that fence, then I do think it's, you know, people take that out of context on when it's right there on the property line.
so talking to the individual who placed the signs, which I've talked to, the intent of putting them up against the fence or close to the fence was so that they did not cause a visual disruption to people trying to come in and out of the convenience center. So they did that conscientiously in order to try and make sure that the placement of the signs did not create a hazard for anyone utilizing the services of the property.
And that, I mean that's understandable. That's just my opinion. You know, put them across the road. It would be more visible when people pull in there and pull out when they're looking across the road than it is when you're pulling in there quick. I just think, as far as if you're wanting them to be seen, put them on the opposite side of the road.
And I think you, as commissioners, have the ability to set an area where you want to allow the signs if you want to do that. I mean, they don't have a right to come in there and put them on your property anywhere they want to. But once you set that area, then you need to treat everybody equally within that area. But I do think that if you choose to, you could tell DOT, no one has permission to put the signs anywhere on their property that's subject to right of way. Now, DOT would probably take them down if you did that because they are on DOT's right of way, because they have to have permission. Now, that doesn't mean that the sign owner or someone may come in and say you're infringing upon my constitutional rights to place a sign on your property because you let somebody else place a sign there for whatever reason before and you're not taking any action against those things.
What's your recommendation for us, Mr. Counselor?
What's been the subject of the problem? Are signs being placed anywhere they want to be put on county property?
Well, I think the argument is where they were just at the dump site on the side where the dump is, outside the fence area.
Yeah, they were outside the fence.
Yeah.
And I'll also say this, they were outside the fence on the state right of way. For my job, I travel from Cherokee County, which is Murphy, to Black Mountain. I don't know what each individual's county policy is, but I know that I have taken note that many, nearly every county that I travel through, their convenience sites are covered up with political signs.
Right.
It's that time of year. It happens every 2 years. And it happens for a brief period of time. It's a short window. And I think the other counties have tolerated it. And the fact that the statute does allow it within the DOT right of way, within a certain window, it's my opinion that we allow it regardless. It's available for all the recognized parties in the state to do. Their signs would fall under those guidelines of that statute. So it's not that someone was trying to exclude anyone. There's always going to be someone who shows up to the dance first.
Right.
And if you take offense to who got there first, the fact that you disagree with that particular party signs or that particular individual signs doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't give you the right to demand that everyone's First Amendment rights be violated by taking the signs down when they comply with the state statute.
Even under the DOT guidance, it specifically says one party cannot put a sign immediately up in front of another person's sign.
Correct.
So that statute contemplates that you can do this, but folks,
have some human decency.
Yeah, use some common sense
Yep.
and folks, you could use some common sense. You could let them place the signs out there as they wanted to, and if somebody got out of hand, you could call up DOT and say, we're revoking their consent, go out there and take every one of them down. Now, DOT might do it, again, they might not, because they have other things to do too.
Yeah.
So, but that's, I think it is within your players to take care of your property and.
I wouldn't put my signs there. I didn't the last time. I couldn't tell you whose signs is up, to be honest with you. I really don't care, but I don't think that is the place to put it. Just my opinion.
As long as it's on the state right of way, I don't see that it's a problem, regardless of party.
My concern is that we don't do anything that makes anything dangerous.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree, but.
Sure.
Including putting signs, big signs on the fences, this sort of thing. We have 2 or 3 locations that are really quite hazardous, and I think most people know where they are. Any restriction of visibility there is a true public hazard for traffic. If we are compelled for a variety of reasons to do it, I would ask that we restrict it from the immediate gate area. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say, 5 feet, something reasonable, rather than have them right up to where the gates are to distract people. But it's a matter we need to resolve tonight, because next time we meet, the matter's going to be virtually mute.
Okay. Exactly.
So as of now, I'm going to put my manager hat on so I can talk to our solid waste department. And I will go with the will of the group, but I do think that having some reasonable restriction that we can tell the folks so that we can just go out there, and if somebody puts one right at the gate, we move it. We move it 5 feet, okay? By the way, FYI, those signs were thrown away. The signs that were picked up by solid waste this morning were put inside the convenience centers for storage, so if whoever had them could come back and get them. So please, none of that the signs were trashed. They were not. The solid waste department was very careful about that from the very beginning. So they were.
And that was the right thing for them to do.
It was exactly the right thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they did that completely correct. And once the matter came up during the middle of the day, word was passed and they put a timeout at that point until we could resolve it as a group. Okay?
Okay.
So that's my 5 cents.
And I would even go as far as to say that once the guidelines and the parameters are set, that if we make all parties involved aware of that, and if they violate the parameters that are set, then I think the solid waste employees have every right to go pull those signs up, not move them. Because because now you are asking your employees to engage in a political activity.
You are.
In my opinion. So I think if you put them up in the within the guidelines that are set, then the employees don't have any interaction with those signs at all. But if they're outside the parameters that we've set, the employee can remove the sign. And typically what the DOT does is they hold them for you to come claim them. But I mean, I think if we put everybody on notice that if you put your sign in the wrong place, it's going to be thrown away. I think we have the ability to do that as well. But the DOT is generally gracious enough. They'll usually give you a warning first and say, hey, your sign's in violation. If you don't remedy the situation, then they remove it and they take it to the maintenance shed. And if you want to go down there and do the walk of shame, you can reclaim your sign. So, you know, that's ultimately what it comes down to. And with the parameters, my biggest thing is if you're going to apply the rule to one group, it has to apply to everybody, regardless of what the rule is. So the selectiveness of it is what irritates me, because it was a selective situation in this particular case. The complaint was.
I don't know who signs that. And Norris, I agree with you. Anything in between the gates there.
And I would say, and I think this is reasonably enforceable, anything within 5 feet either side of the gate, I mean, that 5 feet is 2 paces. I mean, it's a reasonable distance. But we need to come to something I can tell Sam in the morning, and that you guys are telling me.
I think if you wanted to, you could go out there with your attendants and you could put your little area right there and say, you put your signs consistent with the guidelines within this area here. Anything outside this area is off limits and we will remove it. I mean, you could do,
Just
because
give me the
each of your
parameters.
centers are probably going to be a little bit different, and you're
Oh,
going
they're
to
very
have a
unique.
different area
They're very unique.
where you may want to put them, and, you know, you're giving first come, first serve. They can't put signs in front of some other person's sign, so, you know, but that's the area where they're allowed to put them.
And they need to be flat to the fence. That they don't need to be standing this way.
You're
guys.
talking parallel to the fence.
They need to be right at the fence.
That's what I'm saying. You can't see them when you're doing them that way. That's why I don't know why you would even want that. If you're doing flat to the fence, when you're pulling out, you're going to look across the road and see them.
But
My suggestion is nothing between the two gates. That's my suggestion.
Can we conciliatory, gentlemen, when we come to
just tell me
and
what to
say
do,
that
guys. Tell me what to
5
do.
feet on the gates and be
So
in
many
agreement
feet
to
from
move
the
on?
gate. I agree with that.
Okay.
We want to set a perimeter so many feet from the gate.
Yeah.
5 feet from the gates, is that what I'm hearing?
I have no objection to that.
Okay. I will inform
Okay.
solid waste tonight.
How do we want, as far as, you've got the admin building down there where you have signs within that 5 foot remedy. Do we want to make this, is this going to be a specific, is this
Is there
going to apply
enough
to
room on the
everywhere?
backside of that ditch to put all these signs?
I don't know, I've not seen the site.
Well, let me come back to both the old Ingles, for
Yeah.
example, and where we currently have the Board of Elections. One is the headquarters still for the Board of Elections. And here in a couple of days, the school system's gonna have this issue right across the road when we start voting at the Wellness Center. Of course, with the school system, they'll control that.
Yeah.
But it truly is traditional at wherever the voting place is, that those have to be a certain distance away, and the road is just full of them, guys. You drive out.
And
here-
eventually they lose their effectiveness because there's so many of them.
Oh, you don't see them.
Yeah.
They just become a big blur.
Right.
So I would prefer we don't crawl this out to anything beyond the convenience centers,
Right.
because I think we're dealing too much private property and too many variables. And now we're about to get into these polling places.
Let's just do the centers and move on.
Let's just do the centers.
Well, I'm just saying, that needs to be stipulated, otherwise you're gonna have the same discussion. So that's the only reason I brought that up, is because
Limit it to
it
the
needs to be
convenience
put to
centers.
bed at this point and be done with that.
Yeah, limit it to the convenience centers. That would be my humble suggestion.
So we're good.
We all
The
good?
restrictions are limited to the convenience.
That's right.
Yeah.
What we're
Correct.
talking about only
Okay.
affects the convenience center.
I'm good with that.
5 feet each side of the gate.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
I will inform Sam immediately when this meeting is over. All right, Mr. Chairman, that is everything I have, unless members of the board have questions of me.
I just have a moment of personal privilege.
Yes, sir.
So going back all the way back to your item 10A, with the sales tax
Yes, sir.
revenues. And this is something that the Economic Development Board has also talked about doing, is to create a campaign to let people know that let's encourage retail to come to Madison County first and foremost, the retail that our citizens need. But in the event that retail chooses not to come to Madison County to do business, our people and our county thereby benefits when they purchase those items online versus driving to Buncombe County or Tennessee or somewhere else and spending their money. Because when our people, our citizens of Madison County purchase the items online, the internet sales tax revenue that would otherwise go to Buncombe County or Tennessee or Haywood County or other places comes back to Madison County.
Zip code.
So, yeah, it's by zip code. It's not a perfect system because we all know that there are Buncombe County zip codes within the territory of Madison County.
Correct.
So it's not a perfect system, but that's something that we can continue to try to look at and address going forward. But for the time being, I would encourage our citizens, if retail won't come here and set up shop in Madison County, then we need to order it online instead of spending our money somewhere else, because that benefits our county directly when we do that.
Agreed.
So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for the personal privilege, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And hopefully our Economic Development Board will have a campaign to more officially and more eloquently express those ideals than what I just did. But thank you for hearing me out.
Gentlemen, it comes to now we need to go into, I'm going to make a recommendation to go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4.
Property and economic development.
Okay. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We now stand in closed session.
And I request 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Chairman?
Have a second. Discussion?
Second.
All in favor? Good night. Thank you.
Everybody
God bless you.
drive safe.
Wayne, safe drive to Atlanta, brother.
Yeah, me too. You gonna hang around here?